Obie is 2 years old, 20-ish months, and how long has he been at the shelter?
Approximately 4 weeks.
Okay, very good. All right, we are set to go, so let me go ahead and call him in. And I did record Renee, so Obie, please.
Mm-hmm.
Obie, this is Danielle, I'm a human, and I've got Renee here, and Renee has a lot to say when it comes to the animals in the shelter's care, and she has some questions for you today. Can I translate? He says, somebody to hear me? Yes. Yes. He calls himself a good boy. There's a lot of nervousness on his end at times, he's showing me. He doesn't want people to hit him, is what I'm hearing him say. He doesn't want to be attacked by people with their human hands. He is underneath this nervousness, and I don't want to call it fear because it feels lighter than outright fear towards people. It feels more of a leeriness and nervousness. I want to be accepted by people is what he says. He just so wants love. He's not always brave enough, though, Renee, he says, to do what he thinks is right. Now, what do you mean by that, Obie? It's almost like he wants to sometimes ask more of people, like stay with me longer or pet me longer, and that's what he means by that. But he doesn't always feel brave enough to step outside his comfort zone and ask people for more because he's worried about retaliation if he asks for more. So he prefers people to come to him. I want to say this means coming up close to his body in a friendly way, in a non-threatening way. That reassures him that all is well, and especially if you were to drop down to your knees versus standing up tall like most humans do when we approach dogs, dropping down to your knees, it takes the pressure off of him. I do want to say, when you squat down, I feel him going into sweet puppy mode, like, oh, he really wants to come over to you. He really wants to get pet. He really wants the love. Turn your body to the side, too, when you squat down, versus if you see he's acting nervous in return, because that takes the pressure off of, instead of us being frontal to dogs that are nervous about us, we don't want to go chest to chest, eye to eye. We want to give them an angle, which is much how dogs approach other dogs appropriately when they are wanting to make potential friends. But he is very sweet. Sweetheart is sweet. I mean,
he is.
And he wants to please people, but he wants to be shown the proper way. People have to be real soft in their vocal cords when they talk to him. People need to be gentle with their eye contact with him. No harsh eye contact, no hard stares from people, because I feel like he would, underneath the leadership of a very strong-minded, hard-stared person, he shows me feeling wiggly, feeling insecure in a wiggle way, like he would act nervous in a cage if you were in the same cage or stall, he calls it, at the shelter with him. It helps to get him out of his cage or stall, he says, because then he has a lot of space around his body and he feels like he can kind of let his hair down and relax more. He knows how to act silly, and he knows how to play too, he says. He likes to have a good time. Okay, Renee,
sure does.
What is your first question?
Well, we need him to help us out. So first I need him to understand that he is safe and no one is going to hurt him ever again. He's been hurt badly. So first of all, he just had surgery yesterday. I'm sure he was scared. It was emergency surgery. We didn't have time to explain to him what was happening or prepare him for it. It just happened. So I need him to understand that wasn't to hurt him, that was to help him. And I know he might be a little ouchy right now, but it was to make him better. I don't want him to think this is a place where any harm is going to come to him.
Okay. All right. So let me just make sure. So, Obie, do you understand? Tell me what you understood about what Renee just shared. That nobody means me any harm here. That they want to make me better. They want to make my back stronger. They want me to be able to stand tall and be a good boy.
Good.
What kind of surgery was it, Renee?
he had some abdominal surgery done. We thought there was a blockage. Thankfully, there was not. It was just intestinal inflammation that they needed to take care of. But we have to prep him for a second surgery, which the vet is hoping maybe we could get some background on with his hind leg.
Okay, and this is because he doesn't stand tall in the back hind legs. He doesn't extend them properly. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, he has. He has an injury.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So let me give you what he's saying about his awareness of what's going on back there. Hold on. All right, so what do you want to say to her? So if he was to stand tall, this is pre-surgery, so pre-yesterday. If he was to stand tall and straight like a table, like in table pose, like 4 legs straight below him, he couldn't do it because it would place too much tension on the muscles of the midsection of his back, his backbone specifically. It's almost as if the muscles in the hind end feel shorter or somehow not appropriately the right length in order to let him rise to full height in the hind quarters. He's complaining about one of the knees as well. One of the knees back there, I'm not getting a hit on left or right, but one of them, the one that he keeps closer to the ground, lower to the ground than even the other, so it feels like he stands sometimes in a skew, like one hip higher towards the sky direction than the other. He's angled. Yeah, he's not straight when even though he's folded over back there, he still isn't even folded. He's askew, folded. Anyway, the one that he keeps closer to the ground is the one that is even tighter. It's as if when I take a look at the muscles and tendons that run over the knee, it's like he says to me, it's like I have baby muscles back there, in the sense that he was tied down. He was restricted from being able to walk and move properly. He was tethered, I want to say, on a collar and lead. This prevented him from being able to move around appropriately for a good portion of his young life when he was around 1 year old, is what he says. And as a result, he never got to actually extend and lift and use his hindquarters in the way that a dog would in order to come to full stand-up position. It's almost like he was somehow sequestered, kept inside, something that he couldn't fully extend straight up in the air like a dog standing ought to be able to do. This created some retardation, he says, in the muscular growth back there. You'd have to have your vet confirm this, Renee. It does not actually feel to me like a knee issue in and of itself. It feels like it's just the lack of lengthening, the lack of proper growth of the muscles that extend over the knee that seem to make him unable to actually stand straight up like a normal dog. Now, I want to say the attempts that he made to stand took a lot of weight and toll on him, in the sense that it created some ouchiness and pain even when he would try to. When he got excited to see people he liked at the shelter, he shows me wagging his tail and doing the full body wet noodle happy dog dance. And that stress and strain stretched out those muscles that he doesn't have a lot of extension for in the hind limbs, and this would sometimes hurt. It's like he would get excited and then hurt himself by trying to extend his body to fully embrace the excitement pose of a dog seeing a happy person. So he would injure himself, hurt himself, cause pain for himself. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yep. That makes a lot of sense.
If you can do things, talk to your vet. If you can do things that will slowly, over time, help him to lengthen these muscles. I don't know if such a therapy exists, but it's like that's what he would like. You're also going to have to stretch the muscles that go over it's behind the thoracic vertebrae, but it's at the first 1 or 2 vertebrae at the start of the lumbar vertebrae that's closest to the head direction, is what he's showing me.
Okay.
So that, of course, is going to wrap around the left and right side of his, kind of the hourglass section of a dog's body, if you can imagine where the hourglass is in a human. Okay, the dog equivalent of that. So even that muscle that doesn't necessarily, it doesn't tie to the hind legs, but that is tight as well. If you can lubricate that, soften that, warm it up, and stretch it out like stretching out a piece of bubble gum, it would give this dog greater flexibility to be able to lift his hindquarters towards the air. He may never walk normal. He may walk like a hunched back, but not in the front end, but in the hind end. But it feels like he's got a little bit of wiggle room to actually stretch more. You're going to have to talk to your vet about what's possible there. Massage may actually help soften and lengthen some of these over time, too.
Awesome.
There is one more thing here. There is he's giving me the words there. He feels there is a crippling of some of the vertebrae at the base of the tail section. So right in front of the base of the tail, if they'd have to, sacrum area, you'd have to have a vet feel and or maybe take an x-ray to confirm this, but it feels like there's some abnormal growth pattern to the vertebrae back there. Because this dog was kept in a still place for too long, not allowed to move his body.
Okay. So this brings me to the next question perfectly. The vet did an x-ray of his hind, I believe it's his hind right leg.
Okay.
There appears to be an old fracture of the femur that healed improperly, almost over, the bone is overlapping, so it is creating one leg shorter than another.
Okay.
And that makes sense when you're saying he can't fully extend, he can't stand tall. That makes perfect sense.
Okay.
Can he give us any information on that? Was he did that happen by a human? Did it happen by a car? Does he remember ever having any kind of treatment? Anything like that?
So there was an impact from above. Something fell on him, some sort of heavy, inanimate object. He's showing me something like the size of, not the flat screen TVs of today, but the kind you and I probably grew up with, Renee, the tube. And to me, it looks like the size that you or I could carry in our arms. So how big would that be? I don't know. You and I could carry it.
Okay.
Anyway, he shows me as if it fell from above, as if it was on a shelf, and he was in a dark room. It hit him. It went bang. I don't get any person on the premises, or I should say in the vicinity of this dark room, that inside a space that he was in when this happened. It feels like the person discovered it later. He thinks the object falling was very much an accident. He does not blame a person. Did you get help for it? It hurt. It hurt a lot. He doesn't think the person fully understood the degree of pain that he was in at the time of it. It's like the person overlooked it or didn't know. Lack of knowing, lack of understanding, lack of knowledge. Okay, so what happened? It healed on its own. What you're seeing is this is the body when it healed on its own.
That's what we needed to know. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see any intervention from a vet. When asked, did you have anything at all? Pain control? Anything at all? I want to see if you went to the vet at all. He's saying he did not, Renee. And so there's
that's what the vet needed to know. That's exactly it. Perfect.
Okay, there's a couple locations in there that are still scarred at the bone level, he says. So it wasn't a clean break, it was a unpretty, he shows me jagged line, kind of break. He doesn't think about it much anymore because he, being at the shelter, somebody brought him in, he says. I know you said he was stray, but it's like somebody brought him in, and I see his whole world opening up. Like, he shows me parting of clouds and, like, rainbows, and what is this? So it's like things got better. Things have only gotten better for him. He feels cared about. He feels, dare I say, he feels loved, actually. And he's out of the dark. Out of the dark.
Yes. Good. That's what we want him to know. that it's only going to get better from here. And we are going to get him the help that he needs for his leg, but the vet was unsure if this was something done by a human, if perhaps he received vet care, and this is the best that the vet could do, or do we have to go back in and fix his leg for him to help him. So this is exactly what we needed to know.
Okay, good. And he's welcoming the care. He would like to actually extend and stand up more normal in that side. He's gonna, well, you know this, the vet will know this, but he's gonna need recuperation, and I still get a heavy emphasis on a lengthening of the muscles of that lumbar section we talked about. So don't leave all of that out in his recovery, his therapy. Because you have to have loosey-goosey muscles in order for there to be extension, is what he's showing me. Otherwise, he shows me too, being post-surgery, because he's listening to everything we're saying, of course, and he shows me post-surgery, if they go in, and he's almost afraid of the pain as well. I'm going to tell him you're going to have pain control when they fix that limb. But beings get really tight post-surgery because things hurt, and when things hurt, we don't want to move those spaces of our body that hurt. So whatever you can do to obviously not hurt him and not have hurt pain control.
Yeah.
And limber muscles
Definitely.
is ideal. Limber muscles. He likes lying on soft blankets. He enjoys things that he can smush his side of his face on. He shows me, you know how some dogs will kind of... Oh, my cat just jumped on my desk. Some dogs will kind of lay on their side and go like crazy on a rug, like, ooh, this feels so good, rubbing my body on the side. I see him doing that with a blanket. He likes soft things. He's not always had soft things. This dog has also had a lot of experiences outdoors, in the elements. Oh, the intestines. Okay. So the intestines. That stress response is what he's saying. So the inflammation of the intestines that they saw via surgery yesterday, that's what he's saying, that he's had a life of stress on and off. When he was in the dark space, in the dark building, in the dark room by himself, he would sometimes just sit and wait, and other times he would actually cry. Like a dog howling at the moon kind of cry is what he's showing me, because he was alone and lonely.
Okay.
He's a pretty optimistic fellow, so do know that.
Good.
He's got that to his advantage. He needs people to reassure him and tell him out loud what they're going to do, though, before they do it, ideally, Renee. He needs that. What are you about to do to me? Because he gets a little worried about how people are going to handle him. What else for him?
So let's move on to happier things. Obviously, we're looking for a new family for him, one that is not going to leave him in a dark room, and one that is going to give him everything that he wants and needs. What kind of family would he like to have? Would he like small humans in there? Would he like all adults? Would he like another dog? Anything like that?
Okay, sure. So, Obie, where do you want to begin? He wants to be taken inside. He wants to be close. I want to say shadowing, like a shadow or following a person around, is so somebody who's not going to be annoyed or bothered by that activity. It feels like his insecurities, which he may or may not outgrow, Renee, but his insecurities are going to make him want to follow somebody around. Tell us more. So he wants that. He's showing me doing that with what he would define as a trusted adult. All right.
Okay.
And would you want to live with more than one trusted adult? All I need is one, is what he says. He's okay with multiple. He likes people. He likes men. He likes women. I don't get a gender preference in this case of one over the other. What about children? I'm going to show you a teenager. Here's a 13-ish-year-old girl or a boy. I actually see him shying away from that, like not knowing how to be around such a person.
Okay.
So I'm not sure we really need to go younger, but just to play it
Right.
out. What about a 5-year-old? He is showing me not having much interest in them and really wanting to gravitate towards adult people. So adults, would you like to live with another friendly, let's assume friendly to you, dog? He says maybe. Is the dog going to beat me up? Well, if it's a friendly dog, no. He's not sure. He's not sure there. He doesn't have an answer one way or the other. It really seems to depend on where he is emotionally. He needs to get more emotionally braver. He needs to not be hurting as well. I see him snapping at another dog if another dog was to get too close and he was hurting physically in his body. Like he'd be air snapping, like, I need my space because I'm afraid you're going to hurt me accidentally or on purpose. I'm showing him a cat just for the sake of seeing what we can find out. I would say too much interest. I wouldn't put him in a cat home. Based on what I'm seeing. I see him sniffing at it, wanting to go after it, not really knowing what to do with it, not knowing how to behave properly. And that could scare or intimidate a cat.
Sure.
What kind of activities do you want to do? Assuming you're feeling good in your body, what kind of activities do you want to do with your future person or people, Obie? He shows me leisurely walks, but I see him being nervous outside, walking on a leash with a person, as if he's nervous of, I want to say, the outside scenery, the outside landscape. He seems to feel safe being indoors, and I want to say he feels safe being in an enclosed backyard where he can see everything that's around him, and nothing can get to him. So somebody's going to have to, if they choose to take him on walks, which of course is healthy for most dogs, but that's my opinion, my 2 cents. But back to him, it feels like somebody's going to have to start maybe just walking him in the front yard of their house and then going back in and doing that a few times till he finds ease in doing that. Because it feels like he puts on the brakes when he gets nervous. He puts on the brakes and doesn't want to follow somebody. He may even sit in an effort to kind of making it clear to the person he's not interested in going forward because he's not brave enough. He's scared. Again, the sweetness, the emotionally, personality-wise, he's actually loving, can give love, knows how to receive love from human hands. Again, people squatting down makes it a heck of a lot easier. He takes treats well, he says, from people's hands. He is willing to receive food from people's hands if he's, if it's a good enough smelling treat, actually, is what he says.
Awesome.
He's actually okay being at the shelter. Some dogs do better than others in such an environment. I actually get he's actually doing okay there.
Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah. Now, is that what you're seeing? Is this making sense?
Yeah. Yeah, he seems to be adjusting fine, and otherwise we wouldn't have known anything was wrong with the intestines, except for he was very, very lethargic and he wasn't eating, which was abnormal for him. So he's come a long way since the day he came into the shelter. We've really been able to get a good sense of his personality. So he's doing great.
Good. And he's teachable. This dog has a mind and an interest, actually, in learning new things. He shows me, like, trying to sit. It's like, awkward. He's sitting on one leg and the other's kind of skewed out, straightish, kind of like a peg leg.
That's exactly it.
Yep, because he can't really bend it really well. But anyway, he shows me doing that and wanting to do that for a treat, of course. But the mind, he's got a willingness and a desire to learn and to, he says, cohabitate with people. I get he likes touch on the head, he likes touch on the cheek, he likes it around the shoulders. I would say whoever adopts him, don't be too lovey-dovey and overbearing with touch, because it feels like he can, once he gets his fill, he actually needs to sit with that, satiate with that, enjoy that, and he gets his fill and he goes and lays down. I get he really is a love bug and he really does like the touch, but just know that people have to know that when he's had enough, to give him the space to process that, because this dog has been, I'm being shown the words, indiscriminately and inconsistently offered food, water, shelter, and attention. So he needs to, it's like people slowly working up and helping him to know that, hey, this is the new normal.
Right. Okay.
I don't see meanness in him. I don't see him snapping at a person. He's very sweet. If he gets nervous, he's going to shy away from somebody in a behavior language-wise.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Is there anything, toys that would help relax him? Is there a particular food that his body feels that it needs? Is he happy with what he's being fed, which is a pretty high-quality dog food right now? But is there something more we can do for him?
Okay, sure. So, Obie, how about this? This isn't food related, but he answers the question a bit different. As much calmness and quietness as you can offer him. A quiet space. I don't know if you have like, I mean, you certainly want him seen by the public, but an isolation room or someplace that's going to be quieter than, you know, in a run next to other dog runs that are all barking and making a load of noise. It feels like the calmness, the quietness, stillness in the air sound-wise is actually going to be a huge benefit to him decompressing, de-stressing, and it shows me as if the intestine integrity is starting to get closer towards normal. So that actually is going to help. When I go back to your original question, Obie, is there anything you can address based on what she originally asked also? Well, he says he'll eat most anything because he's just so grateful for food. Okay, but what's going to help you? He shows me sitting underneath a tree on harness and leash or collar and leash with a human and just taking everything in. And somebody hand feeding him. Interesting. What's the hand feeding about? Because he can eat it out of a bowl fine by himself, I get, but what's the hand feeding about? It's about somebody showing him that they care about him. Being under the tree, what's that about? Oh, they have to orient me slowly to nature because I get a little bit stressed out in big space environments, even though, so it's funny, getting out of his kennel, but still being in the shelter environment, still being in the building is like he's got more space around his body when he's outside the kennel, but he's still in the building. So that makes him feel good. But when he goes outside, and we're not talking in an enclosed yard, which makes him feel safe and good too, but we're talking in further away you get from the building. You'll have to observe this, Renee, when he's at a point where he can safely walk and all that. Watch his demeanor. It feels like the further you get from the building, most dogs are going to sniff and really find that exciting. I want to say he starts to get a little restless. This can look like some pacing and nervous. It's like he wants to get back to the building, not go too far from the building because he sees the building as safety.
Okay.
So people are going to have to work with him. I'm getting, by the tree image and the hand feeding, it's like somebody say, hey, we can go this far away from the building, and here's the treat. We're having a good time here. It's about helping him, his mind, his central nervous system, to decompress and see that we can have ease, even though where this comes from the brain. It's training. It's a form of training.
Yep, okay.
Now let me see if one more time we can go back to your original question, because I think it's a really good question too. Obie, is there anything more you want to offer here? He says it's not so much about the food, it's about the energy behind the food, the energy of the people, and what their intentions are for me. If I feel emotionally safe, he says, then I start to relax and my body heals.
Okay.
When I get nervous, I turn my head to the side and I look at people out of the corner of my eye. He says most people here are very safe. He's actually come to have a couple favorites of women, I want to say. 2 women are coming up here at the shelter. There's somebody who's a regular morning caretaker, especially, who greets him by name in the morning, who he likes.
Is there a particular toy that Obie might like to help entertain him?
I'm getting he doesn't really know what to do with a toy. But what I am being shown is, okay, I'll give you what I'm getting. I get the image of what to me looks like a spiky shaped football. It's small. It's dog mouth size. It's not the size of a regular human football. It's got these little spikes that are around it that are spikes. I want to say they're rounded at the end, and you can somehow shove something tasty and delicious like peanut butter, smearing it in between these little protrusions, or I call them spikes, but protrusions of plastic. So if you can find a plastic porcupine-ish kind of football-shaped thing and put something delicious. It feels like him licking and chewing for the sake of food eating would be actually calming. So licking and chewing in the scientific world has been proven to, via scientists' studies, to release endorphins and good-feeling chemicals in the body and in the brain of dogs that actually helps them decompress. So doing this as a form of therapy, Renee, might be something to do twice a day, once a day. You can, if you don't feel comfortable with peanut butter, you can try, canned dog food, something like that. But it just feels like him getting his tongue in and out of these little spaces.
Got it.
Gonna love it, but it's gonna give him something to do. And I want to say he's gonna be tired afterwards.
Oh, okay.
It wears him out. I used to, for my foster dogs, I used to use true therapy with some of them, similar to what he's describing here, in an effort to just wear them out. So
perfect.
And they would take naps after, chewing a bully stick or something like that. So it's interesting. Okay.
Oh wow, this has been fantastic. Our vet is going to be thrilled. She was hoping we might be able to get something out of this. This is incredible.
Okay, good. I'm glad it's helpful. Well, let me thank him. So, Obie, thank you so much. Okay. All right, excellent. Thank you so much, Renee.
Thank you, Danielle. We'll talk to you in a couple days with the next one.
All right. You take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.